I will show you how to create many different collectible types using reusable components. You will then be able to easily add more collectibles to your game. So let's begin creating some more collectibles. In a previous tutorial, I've shown you how to create the log collectible, and this collectible component is reusable. So I will reiterate how I've created that, and then we will attach the collectible component onto some new collectible items, and that will prepare us for the next tutorial where I will create the inventory panel and show you how to update the inventory panel when the player collects those items. So go to Scene, New Scene, Other Node, and search for Sprite 2D. Then rename this to Egg, and then go to Game, Objects, and we have an egg item, so just drag that into our texture, and then let's zoom in. Then in the Scenes folder, go to the Components folder, and for the collectible component scene, just drag that onto our egg item. So let's just have a look at the script that we've created for the collectible component. Now, the collectible component, if we just open that scene, this is a type of Area 2D. So we can just check that item. So we created this Area 2D and then attached a script. And the collectible component has a class name called collectible component, which then derives from our Area 2D. I've then added an export variable for the collectible name so that every time we add this collectible component to a different type of collectible, we can just modify that collectible name, and this makes this component reusable. Then in the node, I've connected the body entered signal, and I check if the body which collides is the player. And then I do a print statement just for some debugging, and then we can free this item from our game. Let me just modify this print statement because we're going to do some more collectibles. When the player collects them, we just want to see which ones have been picked up. So we can just say collected and then collectible name. Then head back to the egg scene and let's just save that scene. So go to Scenes folder, Objects, and then just save it as egg scene. Let's go back to the 2D view and then click Collectible Component, Add Child, and look for Collision Shape 2D. Then for the shape, let's just choose the circle shape and then just reduce the size so that it covers our sprite. Then back on Collectible Component, let's just call this Egg. Then go to Scenes folder, Test Scene. Let's create a test scene for our collectibles. Let's choose the test scene player, right click and duplicate. And call this Test Scene Collectibles and just duplicate that scene. Let's open the scene and then zoom in. Let's go to our Objects folder. Let's first drop the egg onto the scene, then go to Rocks. Because we created in a previous tutorial our stone collectible, so as you can see it's set up in exactly the same way as the egg collectible, except we assign the name stone for the stone collectible, and if we just look in our trees folder, we've done the same for log, and that collectible is called log. So let's go to our test scene again and just drop these collectibles onto our scene. So we've got our log and then our stone. Let's just rename this test scene here and call that test scene collectibles and just save the scene. Now let's run our current scene and then let's just check the output here. So let's just pick up the egg. So we say collected egg, log, and stone. Let's create another collectible for milk. So go to Scene, New Scene, Other Node, search for Sprite 2D, create that, F2, and rename this to milk. And in the texture, let's just go back to our game and objects and drag in the simple milk and grass item. Let's just zoom in on this. Now for this sprite, we only want this item here. So let's just pull this up. And because this item is the second frame, so frame 0, 1 and 2, we need to set the frame here. However, the first thing is to say how many horizontal frames do we have. So we've got 4. Then in the frame option, choose 2. And this will then set our sprite. Now we can add our reusable components. So go back to Components folder and then drag the collectible component onto our milk sprite. For the collectible name, let's just set this to be milk and then add a child node and search for collision 2D. Then for the collision shape 2D, for the shape, let's just choose a circle shape and then just resize that. We can now save that scene, and we want to save the scene in the scenes and objects folder, so click save. Head back over to the test scene, and in the objects folder under scenes, let's just drag our milk onto our scene. Then we can test the scene again. Let's just look at the output again. So let's go to the milk item first. So we've got milk, egg, log, and stone. So for the corn harvest collectible, go to scene, new scene, other node, search for sprite 2D, and rename this to corn harvest. Then go to objects under game folder, and then choose basic plants. And if we zoom in, we want to choose this sprite here. So for our horizontal frames, we have 6 frames, so choose 6. And for the vertical frames, there is 2. Then we can just move the frames until we get our corn harvest frame. Then head back over to components and attach the collectible component. And for the collectible name, we'll call this corn, and right click and add another child node and search for collision shape 2D. Click create, and for the shape, we'll choose new circle shape and just resize this. Then let's save our scene, and in the scenes and objects folder, right click, choose new folder and call this plants. Then save the scene as corn harvest. And then for our final collectible, let's go to scene, new scene, other node, search for sprite 2D, create that, and then F2 and call this tomato harvest. Then in texture, go to assets, game, objects, and then choose basic plants. And let's just zoom in on our sprite. Let's go to the horizontal frames and let's just set this to 6. And then the vertical frames is just 2. And then let's just increment frame until we find the tomato. And that now sets up our sprite. Then on the tomato harvest, let's go to components and then drag over the collectible component. And then for the collectible name, let's just call this tomato. Then right click and add a child and search for collision shape 2D. And for the shape, choose circle shape and just resize that. Now let's save the scene, and we'll save it in the same folder as corn harvest, so under scenes, objects and plants, and save that scene. Let's head back over to the test scene collectibles and go to the scenes folder under objects and plants, and let's add the corn harvest collectible and the tomato collectible. Then let's run and test the scene. Now, as you can see, as we move to the egg, we have Y-sort enabled on our player, so the player is sitting behind the collectible. So let's first just collect these, make sure that we've got everything correct. So we've got egg, stone, tomato, corn, and milk. And let's fix that Y sorting. In a previous tutorial, I have explained Y sorting in detail, so you may wish to view that from the playlist. However, I'm going to go through and let's adjust the Y sorting on our collectibles to fix this issue. So to fix the Y sort issue, let's just look at our test scene. I will just organize these. Then let's open first the egg scene and scroll down on the sprite node until you see ordering, and just turn on Y sort enabled and save that scene. Then open the log, and on the sprite 2D again, go back down into ordering and turn on Y sort. Then stone, scroll down and make sure Y sort enabled is on. Back to test scene, open up the milk scene, ordering, turn on sort enabled, back to test scene, then to corn harvest, click sprite 2D, ordering, turn on Y sort, and then finally for the tomato harvest, let's just open that scene too, and let's just enable Y sort on this. So once you've enabled Y sort on all of the collectibles, what we then need to make sure we have is the parent node must also be Y sortable as well. And to check the player is also Y sort enabled, and the Z index is the same for everything. So let's just go to test scene collectibles and enable Y sort on that parent node. Now let's test the scene, and let's just move towards the egg. And as you can see, the player is now in front of the collectibles, and that's the desired effect that we need. So that completes everything for the collectibles. Now that brings us to the end of this tutorial on how to create many different collectibles and use reusable components. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create an inventory panel, and when you collect the collectibles, we will then update the inventory. If you like what you've seen in this tutorial, please remember to hit like and subscribe to receive future updates of my other tutorials. Thank you for watching.